We'll go ahead and get started. Appreciate everybody jumping in, especially on late notice. As you can imagine, it's been a hectic 24 hours or so, but we appreciate you jumping on. And I'd like to introduce our president, Dr. Ron Berry, to kind of kick things off. It's only appropriate that he would do so.
Thank you, John, and thank all of you for joining us. As John said, thank you for doing it last minute. Boy, we've had a great process. I want to start by thanking Scott McDonald, our athletic director, and his staff and the volunteers who helped lead us through this process to this great announcement that we're making today. We certainly had a lot of fan interest in this process. I know Scott and I received a lot of input. We really appreciate that from everyone. We definitely took that into consideration as we went through our process. We also were very fortunate to have a lot of great candidates, a lot of great interest in this position. And I want to personally say thank you to all those folks who put their hat in the ring, who put their name in the hat, who were interested. We really appreciate that, and I wish them the best. When we first started this, I told Scott, he and I had many discussions, and, he and his team were looking for the coach part, the person that knew the technical aspect of football. And, I, being an academic and being a leader, I was looking for leadership skills. I was looking for the person that I thought could come in and lead our program in the right direction, could create a team around him or her that could get us where we needed to be as a university. I was also looking for a person that really wanted to take care of our student athletes, that wanted to create a culture for them where they could compete and succeed on and off the field, and someone who could bring pride not only to our athletic program, our football team, but the university. And I can tell you, we found the perfect person that checks off all those boxes. And I am so excited, Coach Bowden, that you're joining us. I want to say thank you for your interest. Thank you for agreeing to lead our football program. I am so excited to welcome you to ULM as a Warhawk. Scott, I think it's now over to you.
We'll next hear from our athletic director, Scott McDonald.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Dr. Berry. Well said. Just to maybe go over some of the things that Dr. Berry said. We did visit with an awful lot of people through this process. I've visited with lots of athletic directors, coaches, former players, current players that we asked lots of questions of, and went through a process. And as Dr. Berry said, we got to the point where we were looking at the profiles of the folks that had shown interest, and what I'm going to talk about today is some of the attributes that we saw as we talked with Coach Terry Bowden. Certainly his success at every level of college football. I mean, he started as the youngest football coach in the nation at Salem College and had a lot of success there. And then as he moved on to Sanford, where he transitioned them from Division III to a FCS program and had success there, playing for championships. And then on to Auburn, where he competed, winning his first 20 games there and competing for conference championships at Auburn, whether it was at North Alabama, where he competed for championships there at the Division II level, and then certainly at Akron, where he led the Zips to their first bowl victory in school history and two bowls during his tenure there. So, winning on the field certainly is something that we were looking at, someone who could come in and bring a championship culture and someone that had experienced that kind of culture. I think one of the other things that struck us is Coach Bowden, after leaving Akron, decided he wanted to get a doctorate in football. So he went to Clemson, one of the finest football programs certainly in the country, and what Coach Sweeney and that group has been able to do there, and Coach Bowden being a part of that, and being a part of a national championship game last year, and then certainly they're well on their way again this year. Spending time there and getting to learn and sharpen his skills at a program like like Clemson. And I can tell you in my visits with Coach Sweeney, he could not have been more complimentary, could not have been more effusive in his praise of Coach Bowden, his participations, and the way that, he came into that staff and made such a difference as they continue to pursue a national championship there. I think one of the more unique things that we found in talking with Coach Bowden, he's very humble, but I will tell you that he graduated magna cum laude from University of West Virginia University, and then went on to study postgraduate at Oxford University before moving on to the Florida State University School of Law and earning his Juris Doctorate there. So that's something you don't see in every resume of football coaches, but it also tells you his dedication to academics and not only talking about academics, but providing leadership. So when he talks to young people about, getting a degree and doing things off the field in the right way, then certainly he has gone about those things himself. So not just talking about it, but doing it as well. So, if you take all that and I think, and I know you will hear his passion and his intensity and how he feels about student athletes, how he feels about ULM. You take all that and you put it into the mix of the learning and improving and his dedication to his craft to go and find a way to continue to evolve, because he's won at not only different levels, but using different schemes and different eras. And it's just impressive that he continues to evolve and then to go and involve himself at Clemson University is certainly certainly admirable. So without further ado, let me tell you that we're very, very excited today to introduce Terry Bowden, our next head football coach at ULM. Coach?
Scott, thank you very much. And I just want to, first of all, say thank you, Dr. Berry, for his support and for the thorough job that he did. And Scott, obviously, for the long conversations that we have had and your aspirations for this program and my aspirations for me being with this program. And it was so valuable to me to see two people committed to the mission of this university, as well as the importance of college football within that framework. And I think that's so important. I can't thank both of you enough for respecting my position and Clemson, because as you first made that call to me, Scott, just to see if we had any kind of initial interest in each other, I asked and requested that because we were in a chance a week away from playing for a conference championship with Notre Dame, and because of my deep respect for this great university at Clemson and for our head coach and coaching staff and players, that if we not go any further until after that game was over. And it made me a little bit nervous because you had a job to do, and there were coaches you had to interview and some outstanding coaches that you interviewed in that process. But I want to thank you, and I will say, and maybe a humorous note, that I was on the field and we were out there getting control of that game and winning. When I looked down, I saw a text from Scott that said, "Hey, on tomorrow, can you meet with our president? Can you meet with us?" And I said, "Well, thank you for waiting. And yes, by all means, I can't wait to meet with you because that means a lot to me." I'm just so thankful that, I didn't come to Clemson University just to hang on to a football career. I've been a head coach 25 years and been a part of a turnaround process at 5 great universities. But I went to Clemson because I wanted to be around great coaches, a great football program, and I wanted to continue to learn how to be a better coach myself. Very important. I'm lucky enough to sit for 18 years around a breakfast table with a pretty good football coach named Bobby Bowden. I learned a lot of football in those first 18 years. But in the last 2 years, I have also been around to sit around one of the best, if not the best, head coach in the country and a great 2 coordinators and work with them during these years that we've gone 24-2 and now competing for a national championship. In between, I'm fortunate enough to be a part of a lot of success at some other programs. But I did that because I want to believe that we can have great success at ULM. And I come here with nothing less than wanting to build a championship program here and bring football back to some success that it has had in the past. And I want to take us back there. And so I am excited about that opportunity and being a part of this. I have no less desire than to win championships and to compete for a conference championship. I don't come here for anything less than that. People always ask me, well, do you still have the energy and the spirit? Man, if that's in my DA, I've got energy and I've got enthusiasm, and maybe because I'm a little, you'll see when you see me, I'm 5'6". I wasn't the biggest guy on the team, but I believe I always tried the hardest. And if there's a label I could put on myself, I'd say I'm just a grinder. I'm a grinder. I like to show up first. I like to stay to the office last, and I want to make the coffee every day because I got into that office first. And so that's the kind of attitude I want to bring into to this university. And that's kind of the statement I want to make. At 3:30 or so, I'm going to have a meeting with my first meeting with our football team. And I cannot wait, because we can talk about all the constituents, all the important people in this process, but they will always be the student athletes in my mind, and their well-being and their situation. And I look so forward to meeting with those players and going over my expectations for them, but also my thank you. I know 5 years ago, I met with people from ULM, and their passion created a love for me. I just kind of fell in love with the possibility here, not knowing that 5 years later that this is where I would be. But I just want to thank those players for where they've taken this program. And Matt Viator, I want to thank Matt. I'm a part of that same fraternity. We've all worked hard. And I will say this, and I watch the video and I see them play, that ULM is a lot closer to where we want to be today than when we were 5 years ago. And I can only thank the players that are on this team and the players that have graduated, and Matt Viator and his staff for the job that they did. And we will build from that. We will not tear down, but build from that. And I'm going to encourage my players, let's keep on going and finish those things that we are doing. Let's don't worry about portals or other people's showing their love for us. Let's finish the job that's been begun here and get football back to that place where many of us remember the great days. My second year at Auburn, way back in 1994, we had a 16-game winning streak, and we about got beat. It had to make a last drive to a team called Northeast Louisiana. And I can remember having a hard time thinking about what I was going to say in my press conference afterwards. Our first loss was going to be to, I think Northeast was 1AA at that time. But they just took us. They beat us up and down that field all day, and I've never forgotten that as well. But again, I want to thank each and everybody that's been involved with this. I can't tell you how excited I am, and it's just part of my DNA, the enthusiasm, the energy that I want to bring to this program, and that I hope that you will see I will bring to you. I want to ask everyone. There's so many parts of this program and so many parts of this university that need to be involved. And just as Scott, Dr. Barry, and I have felt like a team, we have become a team, and our goals are mutual in what we want to accomplish with this football program and the way we want to do it. We want to win, but we want to win the class. We want to remember it's not about athletes, it's about student athletes. And you can't be the athlete part unless you're the student part. And Scott and I have talked about that, and I'm so glad to say that we've had great success with the classroom attendance and the academics of our football program over the last few years, and that's never taken a back seat to the understanding where that needs to be, and that will be a priority. And so and I want to say to that I'm very committed to the academic athletes, the academic student athlete that's a part of this program. It was important to me. I think if my academic background says anything, it says my dad was a football coach. He loved football. He taught me to love football, and I don't think there's anything I love more than coaching football. But I knew from an early age that my degree and those things I got in the classroom were going to be the things that carried me through. And that's why I studied business in accounting, just so I would have the best business background, because I knew that coaching of football was a business in college. And I went to law school just because I wanted to get a little more knowledge and study there. And so all the things I've done, I want that to be something that our players experience. And so as I look at our people, our ULM fans and alumni and students, I want to first address the most important group of that group, and that is our athletes. And if I say anything, that recruiting is going to be critical, and the first thing I need to do is re-recruit our players. I need to re-recruit and show my desire to have them be a part of our program and have them be a reason for our success. And we'll start that this afternoon on our first meeting, because again, they've paid a lot of price, and I'm sure when things don't go right, they hear those things over their shoulders. But I want to assure them that right here, if they're looking for a new direction and a new emphasis, I promise you I'll give them that. And each and every one of those players will be given an opportunity to, if it's a new slate they want, that's a new slate they get. If they want to live off last year's what they accomplished that's not going to be good enough. We're going to keep doing it again. And so everybody will need to be a part of that. And our style of football, I believe that you no longer win with just defense. I do come from an era where you win championships with defense. Exciting offense puts people in the stadium, and that's going to be one of our strong missions, is to find a better way to attract our critical student involvement and our community involvement in our program. But the most important thing is that we pay attention to our players and make sure they understand that they are the most important part of this program. I consider myself most of all a servant coach, a coach that my job is to serve my players and to serve my faculty and my administration and to serve my community. And service, along with humility, will be the focus of our staff and the personality of our staff. We may be competitive and want to win like heck, but we will do it with great class, dignity, humility, and service to those young men that we are part of. So I speak first of all to our players and those that have been doing so much that I want. But I also want to reach out to all the other very important parts of this team. And whether that be the administration and our faculty and our alumni and our football lettermen and the community at large, we got to pull together. We got to decide this is what we want to do. There's so much future and so much potential in this football program and in this university that if we can strive together, if football wasn't important in an academic setting, they wouldn't play football at MIT or Stanford or Duke. It's important to academic institutions, although it's not the most important thing. It plays its part. And I want this program, that to be a part of our program. And so with all that, I just want to pull all together and take this time to pull each of us together and say, let's go. I never cared whether I was your first choice for this job. I just want to be your last choice. And I am your last choice. And that's the most important thing to me in this journey. We're going to win football games and we're going to do everything we can. I had somebody already ask me, how long is it going to take? It's going to take 60 minutes. That's how long it's going to take for us to get back in that win column. And that's what we're going to shoot for. So again, I want to thank everyone for their support already and the great emails and texts that I've received, the incredible passion that your alumni and your football lettermen have, and those people that are involved. I cannot wait. I will say I'm a Southerner who spent the last 7 years in Northeast Ohio, about 30 miles south of Cleveland and Lake Erie, freezing cold a lot. And I loved it up there, but I'm ready to get south of the Mason-Dixon line and get back south to what I consider a great college town and a great college community in an area that I'm just excited to be a part. It'll be very important. I guess I would mention this is first thing I want to do is involve Louisiana people to make sure we all understand that if we're going to be successful, it starts with athletes that are coached by high school coaches within this great state. Believe me, I've coached against LSU a lot and a lot of other teams. In fact, I've coached against Lafayette and LSU and a lot of schools at different levels from that state. And I always felt that if I could have a few people from Louisiana, whether I was at Auburn, and I did have quite a few players, my father with work done, a lot of great players that they've had from Louisiana through the years. My brother Tommy, who was the head coach at Tulane before he was the head coach at Clemson. We know what the importance of athletes are in that great state and how well they are coached by the coaches in that state. And I seek one of my dear mentors and one of my assistant coaches, Pete Jenkins, is probably one of the most respected coaches in the state of Louisiana over the years, and his time at LSU and all around. And among the coaches there, is agreed to spend a lot of time with me. And let's talk about the game plan, which starts with the athletes around the university and around this community and spreads out throughout the state. And that will be a big part of our efforts as we build this football program. And with that, let's see if there's any questions, Scott, or however y'all want to lead this.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and open up for questions. If you have a question for either Dr. Barry, Scott, or Coach, go ahead and have at it.
Hey, Coach.
Yes.
Hey, Coach. On Twitter, Colby Stoops announced he's returning for another year here at ULM. Did you and Colby talk previously prior to that tweet? If you did, what was mentioned, what was said in that conversation?
We did not. You got to understand the dynamics of this process. We're talking about just this past Saturday, we played against Notre Dame, and then I got that call during that game or the end of that game and spoke the next day. And so I have not until this afternoon when I have our first team meeting and until we reached an agreement. And this hasn't, we're talking days ago. I didn't feel it was appropriate for me to talk to any of the players at that time, but I promise you, he'll be one of the first guys I call. And I believe that if we do the right things, and so many coaches, and I've done this a lot in my life, and been very well mentored, is that by the time they learn how to hire a staff and do the right things, they get fired because you have to know what to do. And so I think the first thing we need to do is not those players don't need a my way or the highway speech. They need to say of our way and how are we going to take it back. And the great thing about this year, because of the pandemic and because of the NCAA rule that came about, every single player I think has one more year back for himself because he's able to replay this year. If it was a year, I think that goes for most players. It might include players that might normally have not thought they're going to be back. But I assure you, Scott and I talked before this meeting, and he identified 3 or 4 people that I need to be on the phone with quickly. But let me tell you something: if you don't have people approaching your players, you don't have enough good players. So that's part of the. Players want to be successful, and I think what I need to do is convince them that we're committed to where we're going with this program, and that there's no reason to seek somewhere else to find what they can find right here as we come about. And again, what I've got to convince them is that by experience, I believe I can bring in just the right offense and defensive staff, that we can pull our team together and not sit around and say, why did I get rid of that guy? Why did I get rid of that guy? Or why did I not encourage this guy to stay? When you go through a season and you need your first teamers, second teamers, third teamers, and everybody plays a part if we're going to get this thing heading in the right direction as quickly as possible.
Hey, Coach, Adam Hunsucker.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about seeing the potential and the commitment in this job when you spoke with some folks from ULM 5 years ago. Specifically, what were those things that really piqued your interest about this place?
Well, I mean, anytime I look, people get excited about being around people that are excited. And these people, there was an excitement about finding a coach and bringing me in. Now, it didn't work out. It just wasn't the right time. I had a full staff to deal with and all those things that financially that come into play, and it just wasn't the right time. But the passion that they had, and also at that time and now, there's a commitment. There's a strong commitment by people that love this program to see that we make the next step. We can't throw dollars at every problem. We've got to work as a team and find a way through synergy and being together that we've got to do those things to be successful. But one, I think the passion that I perceived out of these people that love this university, played football and were a part of this football program, and their desire to see it come up and their desire to have me as be a part of it. And that I felt that they felt there was a need for me to be here. There was something I could do to help this program. And so I know the tradition of great football players in the state. I remembered when Northeast was this program had outstanding football teams and the process. And they've had some even in the past as a 1A team, but I do know that there is potential there. So just having looked at it and seen what the love of football in this area, and how important college football and high school football is in this part of the country, especially in Louisiana, and seeing the passion of those people that that have been a part of this. Letterman and people that are alums and graduates, they'll be here a lot longer sometimes than ADs and presidents and football coaches. It's always going to be their color. It's always going to be their team. And so I often look to that to see where they are. But I do believe there has to be a commitment. We've got to go out there. I've got to go out there with Scott and maybe with Dr. Berry, and we've got to go to people in the community, and we got to say, we need your help. We need your help. And I think I've seen some people that have said there's a willingness to step forward if we'll make that commitment to say we're going to do things and we're going to strive to be that kind of program. They're going to help. So I think that's what it needs is not only good, clear direction, but also the means in which we do it. We can't somehow magically do it with less than all the time than every one of our opponents. But we've got to understand that if we pull together and can catch up, that we've got to have that kind of support. So that's the thing. I just felt there was an energy with the people that sat with me, and Dr. Berry, as he called me. I've had a lot of jobs where the president didn't call me, and I had a president call me, and I understood that, and then my AD stayed in constant contact with me. about that too. But if there's anything I saw is that one, I know what football's like in this part of the country and in this state, and I saw enough energy and enough excitement about this program that I knew that if we do the things right from our part, hire the right people, don't hire my friends, don't hire family members, don't hire friends, don't feel obligations, but go out there and find the very best people that can come in here and do all those things. I made a lot of mistakes coaching in my days. As a 26-year-old head coach, maybe the best thing I ever did was sign my first quarterback. His name was Jimbo Fisher, was the first quarterback I ever signed. And he was my coach for 14 years, player and coach. And so I know there's enough players like that. Of course, he's going on to do a pretty good job now at Texas A&M. And so I think part of that, just bringing in good people and having good people in the area, and then the support that we'll have to have from everyone. Although that may not come out perfectly in having the most of everything right now, but I think there's a commitment to doing everything we can to put it in that situation.
All right, this is a question for Scott then. You talking about that commitment and everything, what have you all made commitment wise as far as will we be up in the salaries and, cost of attendance, facilities, where do things like that stand as far as a plan to, give Coach Bowden what he needs to go out there and win?
Certainly. I think this, Adam, been working with Dr. Berry. We've had numerous conversations. We're putting together a strategic plan. The university has a strategic plan process going on, and we're certainly a big part of that in athletics. In the meantime, there's things that we're looking to address most immediately. And we've talked to Coach Bowden about that. And more than anything, I think this, Adam, there are people that we visited with that, want to help us and participate and do some of the things that you mentioned, whether it be to continue to increase, budget, whether it is cost of attendance, whether it is, towards scholarships and those sorts of things. So that's the biggest part. We all, as Coach Bowden says, we all got to pull together, and that's all aspects of the community and the constituencies that we have. And I'm very confident that we're going to have that done.
Adam, let me add something. Scott came to me with an idea, and we were able to implement it immediately. We know ULM is strapped for resources, but we have a lot of great people across campus. And as Scott just said, and as Coach Bowden said, we've all got to work together. We've got to become a stronger team together. And so our ULM Foundation development officers are now going to be helping us raise money for athletics. And just like they have a goal each year for academics and scholarships, they're going to have a goal now for athletics. So we now will have more people out in the community working with our alumni and our fans, asking for support for our football and all of our athletic programs. So that was something that we did almost immediately. And I certainly want to thank Scott and Susan Chappell for coming to me with that great idea. It's going to put more boots on the ground, more people going out there telling the great stories of ULM football and ULM athletics to hopefully generate a lot more support.
Let me add something here too. On the back end of Dr. Berry's comments, the one thing that I think I can bring to this table, and I worked very hard. There was a plan going to Clemson. There was an idea in my head that I might finish up my career at a mid-major that needed to build and be a part of that process. Because however it happened, I've always seemed to have gone to a place that needed help. And through the experience of the wonderful people I've worked with, being able to provide that help. But when I came to Clemson, I came to one of the most well-funded budgets, probably like LSU, Ohio State, there's an Alabama. These guys, they really do have the amount of ability to do all the things that those type of programs do. But what they do here is they attract the most impressive group of young people. We have the most impressive group of graduate assistants, analysts, interns, part-time people that come here and are recognized as the very best, brightest young people in this business, coaches, recruiters, social media people, academic people, all the young people. And what I've been able to do is identify a lot of coaches that I recognize as future great coaches of this program. I know what they look like when I see them and when they're young. I know the ones when they were young and came on. And so what I'm able to do, and I think as part of this, is that I've got to be able to find people that we can afford right now that we won't be able to afford 5 years from now, that they will be the brightest of the bright. But they're here knowing that we've got to win here, we've got to be successful here, and they have got to do a great job here. And we can take the fact that they were trained at a place like Clemson, and I'm sure you could say LSU would have the same circumstances in the people they have, or in Ohio State that we play next week, and Notre Dame and people like that. But I think that's part of getting this transition period that I'm excited that I can do right now at this point in time in my career. I've just got an abundance of offensive and defensive coaches that are trained by the two best, maybe highest paid and best coordinators in the country, Brent Venables and Tony Elliott, a head coach that is I consider him next to my father about as impressive a head coach as I've ever been around. And I've been around a lot of them. Coach Saban was a defensive backfield coach when I played at West Virginia, and I've been around some very good Coach Fisher, who's doing an outstanding job. And I'm around some great coaches, but I've got some young people that I'm going to ask to be interviewed and to come on board here, that they know that their success in this industry will be not by how much they're paid at ULM, but how well they perform at ULM and how well we take this program to another level. And I'll be the first to encourage them and recommend them to the SEC, wherever it is they want to go in their careers. That's fine. And if they can help us along the way, that will be even better.
I guess to piggyback off that, then, how quickly do you anticipate getting the staff in here?
Well, and again, I've got a commitment to people here that we're talking immediately. Coach Sweeney has allowed me to talk to me, but I'm not going to move anybody out of there until the last game. Now that may mean that those 5 or 4 or however many that I use will be able to do a lot of things on the road, but they've got a couple of games they want to win. I'm going to be doing a lot of things differently. I'll still be on that sideline on those 2 weeks, but I will be here doing work here. But they will be immediately. We will make immediate decisions where the guys that they want to come here, and we'll make those. We'll come to a conclusion on that. I won't ask a lot of them. Recruiting, first of all, is dead. We have a dead period of recruiting almost till the middle of January or after the coaches clinic. They can't even recruit. What I've got to do is with a couple other people, and I'm going to back. And I will say this: I have done this before. I will evaluate and allow. And have interviews with any coaches on that staff and people in that staffing department to see if there's anybody that might fit in. And I've always had looked at that, So there will be people here that can keep us going, knowing that those coaches may be, or those support staff may be ones that are a part of the next staff. But anyway, the coaches that are here, I'm around them. I know what they can do. I don't think there's a lot I'm going to have to demand that they take away, because even the youngest guys here, as we tell all our coaches here, I don't care if you only do one thing a week. If you have one little thing, that may be the thing that wins the game in a big game against Ohio State, a big game that might be against Alabama or was against Notre Dame. So I'm going to make sure I don't take away from their ability to do that thing that they do as analysts or graduate assistants or running a scout team that would not enable them to help this program to win a championship. Even I have some duties that I hope that I still can do on the side as an analyst. I've already handed all my papers in for this game to tell you what an analyst does. My project, my work for Ohio State's already done, because I had to give that to the coordinators now so they can spend a week and a half working on the game plan and all that stuff. And so our guys work ahead and do little things, but we will be hiring them immediately based upon meeting all the requirements of HR and our administration and doing that in a timely manner. But there's no delay. There's just not a big urgency of getting them out on the road recruiting, because you can't do that. And the ones that are here, as opposed to any others that I might hear from saying, there'll be others from other places. They know exactly how I want things done. That's one of the other things. I want to make sure that we don't have a transition of a bunch of different guys who have a bunch of different philosophies of how we want to do things. I'm going to get as many people as I can that I believe are the brightest of the bright, that we talk the same language and we're on the same page offensively and defensively. And if they have any issues or knowledgeable things they need to learn, they know where they can call and get good people to advise them. And so So yes, we're working on we're going to be hiring right away, or at least locking people up right away. But I will respect that these guys we have 2 more games to win that national championship at Clemson, and I wouldn't want to do one thing to take away from that.
One more from me then. These players you're about to talk to, they've been through a lot. Beginning, being in spring with a tornado, then, a couple hurricanes, coronavirus, and 0-10, all of it. What's your message going to be to those guys, that need some encouragement or, looking for direction as to where this program is going to go?
Well, one, that I would say, if you wonder what's going to happen, at least I have a history. Look at my history. Look at where I have gone and what I have done, and how quickly we've turned around programs. And sometimes it's not as quick. I know at Akron, they had won 1 game 2 years in a row, and it was ranked as the worst team in the program. But by that 4th year, we won the first bowl game in history, and we played the next year, played for the conference championship and another bowl. But those players knew that I wasn't running players off. And I think the first thing these players will know that I'm going to support them. I know what they've been through. I know what it means to walk around the campus and people watch, why can't we do this and why can't we do that? Well, there are it's hard to win football games. Coach Sweeney's catching a lot of flack because he said, if you don't play 9 or 10 games, I'm not sure you should be in the playoffs. Well, we happen to play one, but the point he's trying to make is it's hard to win football games. It's not easy. A lot of people have to do a lot of things together. And to me, to see the progress and how close these players came and how much they've worked, I'm going to impress quickly on them that you don't need to go anywhere. You keep doing what you're doing. Let me add a few things. Let me bring in a few people, and let's take it over that top, and take us beyond that. When I first started coaching, my dad said, Terry, when you take over a program that's not very good, you lose big, then you lose close, then you win close, then you win big. If you get the right situation and you know how to handle it, you can avoid that lose big part. You may lose some close ones, but you're very quick to winning close ones. And that's really where we are, I believe. I believe Matt had this program, especially last year. This year, some things didn't work out and the virus affected. But he had this team 2 years ago very, very close. And it's a shame because when you lose 10 in a row, it's hard to get things turned back around. But I think this team is very close. And so I think the first thing they do is let them know that I'm a positive reinforcement guy. I'm not a negative guy. I'm not a my way or the highway, although there will be my expectations of the way I like to do things. And that's just a part of growing up and learning to work for a different person once in a while, that you got to do things the way they want to do it. But I think the players will be very, I hope they will be, and I'll do everything I can to make them very receptive of the challenge and the opportunity we provide.
Hey, Coach, as you know, football's changed so much in the last 10 years, the last 5 years even. Your last 2 years over at Clemson, what have you learned to kind of help you in the football coaching side of things to bring over to your next head coaching position?
Well, to me, there's an old saying. I learned it from Pete Jenkins and one of my Louisiana mentor assistant coaches, that if a duck can pull a truck, hitch him up. That you got to get out of the box of saying you got to have this elite guy, that elite guy, and that everybody has to look like that. I think what I've learned at Clemson, and Clemson's not this, they don't do it exactly the same way as Alabama. They don't do it the exact way. There they have their process. LSU, I don't think anybody ever has prettier, more talented athletes than LSU. You love to watch them play. They're kind of like the old Southern Cal teams or Oklahoma teams back in the day. They just look different on the hook, when they got in play. But I learned it at Clemson, and I think this is what I want to talk about at ULM. We need to find our culture. At ULM, we don't have the same culture. Akron was a city school. It was almost like a junior college, and it attracted a different type of athlete, a student athlete. I think Clemson will be very much like ULM, is that the type of town, community that we need to understand what our culture is, the type of players that we need to win with, the type of players that our fans and our alumni and our community want to be a part of, and we will win with that culture. And the reason I say that, those guys aren't always the best football players. It's the best player, the players that play the best, and that's why I love that saying: if a duck can pull a truck, hitch him up. At a place like at Auburn, what you learn is they got 2 or 3 ducks on this team that are just unbelievable glue. They pull this team together. Now they've got some elites all around them, some real elite players, but they understand their culture, and it involves people that a lot of guys like that. Now, as opposed to a lot of swans and just a few ducks, at a ULM, I'm happy to have a lot of ducks and just a few swans. I want a lot of guys that may not look like the part, but they play the part and act the part. And I think that's the one thing we can do. We've got to. I do believe that we don't play fast and entertain just for the entertainment factor. That there's been such a craze to play fast offensively. That's not new. When I was at Auburn, I watched 1993 a fellow named Charlie Ward at Florida State play no huddle fast break football. They called it racehorse style, and they won a national championship. And I put it in at Auburn in 1995. Mike Leach was an offensive coordinator at Valdosta, and he would come up and watch us go fast break. And he went with him and Hal Mummy went up to Kentucky and got what they call the air raid offense, very similar to what we were doing then. So I think fast and exciting football is what players want to play. But I think the trend right now is not playing fast every play, but changing tempo, is to play at a certain speed that's fast to make the defense get used to playing fast, and then slow it down, make them play slow, and then all of a sudden play very fast. So I think one of the things that football we've got to recognize is the changing of tempo and the changing of pace, and how that much I learned at Clemson, how they always play kind of fast, but the play count isn't always important. It's how well you can make that defense have to adjust throughout the game to the speed in which you play. And then I see with Coach Venables here is how important it is still to play great defense. If anybody saw our last game against Notre Dame, we had 3 of our main starters out the first game against Notre Dame on defense, and they were all back. And we won that game by just stifling them defensively. And that doesn't always have to happen with the best football players. You can do that with a mentality and with an effort and with a scheme. And I think the amazing thing that I've learned about Clemson, we do a great job of sacking quarterbacks. And we have sacks by 20 different players. One game it's safeties, one game it's outside linebackers, one game it's defensive linemen. But you can't come at people the same way, but you still better come at people every minute and play aggressive, over the top, across the line of scrimmage defense. And I've been very blessed to be around Brent Venables. When I was at Auburn, Bob Stoops was a defensive coordinator at Florida, and that's his mentor. And I had to go against him a lot when he was with Spurrier there. And I just think that that's the style of play. When I seek coaches, and especially those that might be young here, those are the things that I say. One, we don't have to have the prettiest guy at every position, but we better have a few ducks that can pull trucks and don't care what they look like as long as they play, and also be willing to play with an intensity and across the line of scrimmage style that creates havoc with offenses by bringing different types of people.
Hey, Coach. Hey, Coach, obviously, I don't know if you had time to even evaluate this kind of stuff, but what are the chances that some of the previous staffers will remain on your coaching staff here at ULM?
Well, all I can say, if I look back over the 5 jobs that I've taken over, there's always been a guy that I keep, and maybe 2 from the very first program I went to. There were no coaches left. It was a small little NAI school. But everywhere I've been, there's been somebody that I need that fits in. Now, I like to. Unfortunately, that's the nature of this business. When you come in, it's often necessary to bring in all your own people. I tell most coaches, if we're sitting around those staff meetings early on and you're sitting there in your mind thinking, I sure wish this head coach did like the last head coach, then we're wasting our time. You're wasting my time. I should have made a decision then. It's not that you're wrong. It's that sometimes we just do things differently. And I think we have to realize that sometimes those changes have to be made. Just like when I come here, you'd like to take all your last staff you had at Akron. You'd like to say, well, I'm just going to go higher. Well, they don't all fit in here. That's not the right mix for here. They've been a Division I coaches that I brought them along, and now they've given them an opportunity. So, that being said, do I have the right mix? Can I relate to the high school coach in Louisiana? Do I know the right things to do? I know that by bringing some people in and talking to the people that we already have on our staff, there is always the chance for that 1 or 2 that it fits just in the need, just in with what we're trying to do. A good coach is a good coach. That's the other thing. You can say every time I think, well, you better be from the area. I go look at who Arkansas State hired, who Louisiana Tech hired. I mean, Skip Holtz was my dad's GA way back, and Butch I've known for a long time. And a good coach can coach wherever he is, but you better understand that you might need to keep some people on. I don't have an ego when it comes to that. I tell all my coaches, you don't have to hate the previous coach or dislike him just to prove to me that you like me. We're all in this together. And so I would, by all means, we'll talk about it and we'll address it. And very well, if it's like the past, there'll be the guy that stays in part as a part of our program.
And I was going to ask you about that. Do you have a connection with Coach Holtz at Skip Holtz at Tech? Do you have a connection with Lou Holtz?
It's funny. Skip was after me. I never was a full-time assistant. My dad would not hire Tommy and I as full. We both were GAs way back. And then he said, you guys are on your own because if I hire one, I won't be able to hire the other. And so we were out on our own. Skip came in much later. His dad and my dad were best friends. When my dad was a head coach, and we go up to study football at Ohio State. Lou was a GA, and he was a go-getter back then. He would pick my dad up at the airport, and he'd drive him around and do all those things. And they became very good friends. And when Skip was getting his start, I think that's where Lou sent him to my dad. I don't know Skip as well as I know what it was like being the son of a football coach, and being the son of a famous football coach. Now, I got to know his dad more when I worked 10 years at ABC Sports. It's almost been a detriment to the end of my career that I started so long. People remember me coaching way, way, way back. Well, I was 26. And then after 15 years as a head coach, after Auburn, I got hired by ABC to do the studio show in New York. So I spent 10 years in New York. John Saunders was my partner. Gosh, I can't remember the guy, the NBC guy now that was with me. I'm sorry, I've just missed his name, but he was with ABC then, one of the top guys. Tim Brando, a ULM guy. We would have dinner every Friday together. He'd be at CBS, he'd be at Cross Park Avenue, I'd be on our side at ABC, and we spent a lot of time together. And then we did a 3-hour radio show together, and I'm so glad to be a part of that with him as well in that regard. But that being said, we will find people that I think we can identify with that can help us in all these areas.
Coach, I want to piggyback off something that Adam said. As much as the players have been through this year, this fan base has been through a lot over the last 25 years since the move to 1A. What can you say to energize this fan base, and especially the ones that walked away over the last 2 decades?
Well, just give me a shot. Give me a shot at this. Give us a shot. And you know what? This is exactly what happened at Akron. Akron was a play for national championship at 1AA. Akron was, because they stayed Division II a long time and then moved to 1AA and got really good at 1AA. And when they made their move to 1A, Akron, it seemed like Akron and Kent were always playing. Our stadiums were 11 miles apart, and that was our rival. And it was a critical game because neither team was usually playing for much except that game. It's not much success. And quite often, and I'll just say this, quite often when you move from a lower level to a higher level, and the first thing you got to do is double or triple your budget, and that's all for scholarships. It's not even for budget. It's not for salaries. It's not for facilities. And you increase the cost of football so much that you don't do the little things. You don't realize that it's a lot of different areas that you've got to match your opponents in what they do. I would just say this, but even my last 7 years at Akron, where we had a lot of success. Now I got new leadership, new president, I got new AD, and they wanted to go a different direction. I didn't agree with them, but that's that's their prerogative to do. But I think if you'll look back and look what we did at Akron, facing the almost exact same situation, we were able to say, okay, let's build together and see what we got to do to be successful. And the MAC conference is a very good conference too. When you look at Toledo and Bowling Green, well, not Bowling Green this year, but Toledo and Buffalo and some of these teams, Michigan's, the Western Michigan, Central Michigan, there's some great football being played up there. At Akron, we had to have the same issues that were dealt with at ULM, in the sense that we were very successful, probably as a 1AA, and have not always gone as moved as fast in 1A. All I can say is I've been fortunate to have been at Sanford when we went. Sanford, my mother and father went to Sanford. My dad was a quarterback. My mom was a cheerleader. My dad became a head coach there in 59 through 62. Then around 70, they dropped football. They dropped it because it was the oil embargo days. And then in the early 80s, they brought it back at Division III. And they were terrible. They just weren't very good at it. And then they hired me from Salem and asked if I could move them to 1AA. And we had to go through that process. We couldn't get very good at football again. And then you can imagine when you go from 3 with no scholarships to 1AA with 63 scholarships. You've got to do things just right. And so we had to sit there and watch closely how we did things and playing people. So just because it hasn't been done before, there comes a point in time when you say, you know what, it's time to put our resources together, to put our heads together, to see what other people have done. And I think I can look back to where I've been fortunate to be a part of programs and see what exactly we need to do. Bottom line, I don't care how good a coach I may be or wish I was. He who has the best players almost always wins. Very seldom. But if we can get to where we're close, then a lot of the other factors come into play. And so I think that's just what we got to do. I've got to convince our players that hey, have faith in what we're doing and and the direction I want for you to go and for us to go, because in 5 different times I've seen that way work, and at different levels and at financial situations that were worse than this one and were more difficult. We're not in worse. We're just we're at a time where we have to recognize that what our budget is and where we want to go, and that's probably as much involved with student enrollment and trying to find ways to energize that as well, along with this. And so all I can say is, if you're going to have somebody try to do it, I've done it, and I've had to do it, and I've had to make decisions, and if I made bad ones, I try not to repeat the wrong ones. So by the time you're my age, dadgum, got most of the bad ones eliminated in your efforts to build a program. So, but I'll say this again. I don't know when I've been more excited. Maybe going from Sanford to Auburn, I was in a little bit of a shock. But I'm as excited about this because I've had a chance to be in a kind of a sabbatical the last 2 years, and a chance to go. I'm actually going to be a GA. I'm studying things that I didn't have time to study as a head coach, and learning things and doing things that I feel like I'm so excited because I can bring things to the table here that I wasn't able to bring to the last 3 or 4 schools that I went to, and that makes me excited about the possibilities here, and I'm excited about doing some of those things, and so that excites me. Just like as a program, I feel there's so much now when you come to a Clemson, and I'm sure, like I say, you could fill in the blank. LSU, Alabama, Ohio State. These people, when you see what they're doing with social media and with branding, and with internet presence and digital presence, and a lot of this stuff is just done with effort, not money. And you create a virtual perception of your university and your athletic department. We already do a great job, John Lewandowski. Y'all may not know we were together at Auburn. We didn't know that until we talked. He was there the first year I was there, then he moved out. But it'd been a long, long time since I talked to or thought about John. But he understands that we can do things that where we create a branding and a presence, and a virtual presence, a digital presence that shows people what we plan on being and what we're going to be. And we start there, and we may start that as soon as we get there and over the holidays, and let's start doing that. And so those are just things that I found out at Clemson that I think we can utilize here, that will help us to for those players say, wait, this guy has been fortunate to be around some things, or hey, let's give this program another chance, because we were able to do it at Akron, and under very similar circumstances at Akron. And we were able to do it at Samford University when we had maybe worse circumstances, going from a 3 to a 1AA, and all those situations. It's funny, North Alabama was the only program that I took over that they were like 10-1 when I got there. And that was the scariest one of all, because what do you do to make that one better? But we started the season out 11-0 and had the number 1 offense in the country, and we're able to keep the GO program growing. But hopefully the body of work will help to encourage players, to buy in to what we're doing, because that's going to be important. Buying in, for them to buy in and make a total commitment to the direction that we want to go with this program.
Hey, Coach, did you talk to your father before taking this job? And if you did, did he give you any advice? What did he tell you before taking the ULM gig?
Oh, we talk. We try to talk every day. My father had a very close call with the COVID-19. He was in the hospital for 14 days, and there were days that we weren't sure he was going to make it. It was his pre-existing illnesses that just overtook him. But he's back to almost 100%, and he's so excited about this move. And I promise you, if my mother and dad, if their health is good and times are good, they'll be in the stadium. If there's a suite up there, I don't know enough about our stadium, but if there's a suite they can sit in, they'll be in our first game, and he'll be wearing a ULM hat. Because this is the only Bowden game in town, and there's been a lot of games. There were years when I was the head coach at Auburn, Tommy was the head coach at Clemson, and Dad was the head coach at Florida State. And my mother never could have a good Saturday because she had to win 3 games just to have a good day. But I talk to him every day, and he is excited. You got to understand my career. People say, "Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that?" Because that's what my dad did. I wanted to do the way he did. He became a head coach at 26 at South Georgia Junior College. And then at 3 years later, became the head coach at Sanford. And then later on became an assistant coach at Florida State. His number one receiver was a guy named Fred Blitnikoff, so that takes you back a little bit. But I want to start that way. And so I think he identifies as well, where in the days past, you had to do a lot of things just to build your program. And I think he identifies more with building programs like this than the 34 years he spent at Florida State. But even Florida State, and I don't have to live off of his merits. I've spent my entire career coaching, but I've always taken heart of the fact that when he went to Florida State in 1976, they averaged 17,000 people, and they were about to drop football. They had won 3 games in the previous 3 years, and they were going to give it one more shot. And they lost. They won 5 the first game. They never had a losing season since. But it took a lot of building and building and building. And my brother Tommy and I were graduate assistants during those early days. And my brother Jeff was a walk-on player. And so I think he is very excited about it. And this will be as much as my mom and dad are 88 and 91. They're confined as much as they have to be to their house and not getting out. He made his last games he went to was Clemson Boston College, and he had planned on coming some this year before the virus hit in March. And hopefully we'll get to a day where he and my mom can get to a ULM game. But I promise you, he'll be watching every single one, whether it be video or whatever. He'll be watching every one and telling me how to coach every week.
Anything else for either Dr. Berry, Scott, or Coach Bowden? Really
Dr.
appreciate
Berry.
it. Coach, if you don't mind, please go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, Dr. Berry and Scott, I know that y'all were pretty involved 5 years ago with that coaching search that wound up landing Matt Viator. What was different this time where Bowden was maybe one of the finalists to actually push him over the edge and make him the next coach of ULM?
So unfortunately, I wasn't part of that search at all, so I really can't comment. But just going back to my original opening comments, Coach Bowden he's got the whole package. That's what led him to the top this time. He has the entire package of what we need at ULM to be successful. But I'll defer to Scott to compare 5 years ago with today.
Yeah, Dr. Berry. Dusty, I wasn't involved with that search either. I was not on that search committee. And so I do know a lot of the folks that were on that search committee. And when they came back, how excited they were in meeting with Coach Bowden and talked about it quite a bit. And so, but no, I was not involved at that point.
I've slept a little bit since then, so my apologies. Coach Bowden, good to see you again, and looking forward to your time at ULM.
Thank you. And let me say, we had a great talk those 5 years ago, and it wasn't so much about who all. I was convinced. I think what happened, the timing wasn't right. The finances didn't make sense. I was very happy, but I had 9 coaches that were at a certain salary that we couldn't come to terms with that much of a change, and it just wasn't. It wasn't right for me, and it wasn't right for them. I'm not going to walk away from my assistant coaches because I want to be somewhere else. Right now, we both, I think, we fell in love with each other. It just, we both knew that at that point we decided it just wasn't the right time, and so we went our different ways. But I think the passion began for me at that point, and then when Scott and Dr. Turner came aboard, and I saw that the importance they feel that football can be a part, and how much they want to play in it. It just reignited those fires.
Anything else for Anybody? Dr. Berry, appreciate your time. Scott, thank you. Coach, I appreciate it. If you would too, I want to publicly thank Brian Hennessy from the Clemson staff for his help the last day and a half in getting us to this point today. And Merry Christmas, everyone.